when routine stop becomes serious, criminal lawyer explains. Most drivers believe serious traffic stops begin with serious crimes. They don't. Many begin exactly the same way ordinary stops begin. A broken taillight, a wide turn, 5 miles over the limit. Routine, calm, forgettable. But here's what most people never realize. The moment that transforms a routine stop into a serious encounter is usually invisible. It happens quietly. A pause too long, a movement at the wrong time, an answer that changes officer perception. And once that shift happens, the legal framework changes with it. Not emotionally, procedurally. Tonight, I want to show you how that transition actually happens. Because traffic stops are not conversations. They are sequences, and small moments decide big outcomes. The core truth: serious stops are built incrementally. People imagine escalation as something dramatic. Raised voices, handcuffs, commands shouted across asphalt. In reality, escalation usually begins long before any of that. From a legal perspective, officers are trained to evaluate evolving indicators, not just violations. Indicators: body language, tone, response timing, movement patterns, behavior consistency. Courts analyze those details later through bodycam review, not through memory, not through emotion, frame by frame, second by second. This is where things change. Because many drivers unknowingly create the conditions that transform a limited stop into a broader investigation. And once a stop expands legally, officers gain more authority, more flexibility, and more justification for deeper action. Tonight, we break down exactly how that happens. Move 1. The first 15 seconds quietly shape everything. The first 15 seconds of a stop are often the most important. Not legally, psychologically. Before the officer reaches your window, a perception is already forming. Courts later call this officer assessment. And timing matters. How quickly you pull over matters. Whether your braking appears abrupt matters. Whether your hands disappear below window level matters. From a legal perspective, these early observations help establish officer perception of threat, unpredictability, or compliance. Most drivers don't realize bodycam review begins before conversation begins. The camera captures movement first, words second, movement versus words. That distinction appears constantly in courtroom analysis. Here's a realistic scenario. An officer initiates a routine stop for speeding. The driver immediately begins reaching toward the glove compartment before the officer approaches. The movement itself may be innocent, but from the officer's perspective, uncertainty now exists. That uncertainty changes the tone of the encounter. Courts later analyze whether the officer's safety concerns became objectively reasonable based on visible movement patterns. Notice what happened. No argument occurred. No refusal occurred. The stop changed anyway. Quietly, incrementally. This is why experienced defense attorneys study the first moments carefully, because perception forms before dialogue begins. And once perception hardens, every later action gets interpreted through that lens. Move 2. The seatbelt moment most drivers never notice. Here's what most people miss. The seatbelt is not just safety equipment during a traffic stop. It becomes behavioral evidence. The timing of when it comes off matters more than people think. If a driver unbuckles too early, officers may interpret that as preparation to exit or sudden movement readiness. If the driver waits too long after being instructed, officers may interpret hesitation. Bodycam audio captures the click. Courts analyze timing, not intention. 1 second can completely alter interpretation. From a legal perspective, officers are trained to interpret movement sequences rather than isolated actions. The seatbelt becomes part of that sequence. I reviewed a case where force became a central issue. The deciding factor was not the officer's command. It was the timing of the driver's seatbelt release. The prosecution argued delayed compliance. The defense argued cautious movement. The court slowed the footage frame by frame. That's how detailed these analyses become. This is where things change. Because many drivers think courts focus on major actions. In reality, courts often focus on transitional moments. The moments between instruction and movement. The moments between silence and speech. the moments between hesitation and compliance. And the seatbelt moment sits directly inside that transition zone. Move 3. Silence can escalate a stop faster than talking. People misunderstand silence. They think silence always protects them. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it creates ambiguity. And ambiguity changes officer perception. From a legal perspective, silence is analyzed alongside physical behavior, not separately. If silence appears calm, measured, and controlled, courts may interpret it neutrally. But silence combined with delayed movement, visible tension, or avoidance behavior creates a different narrative. Here's the hidden detail. Officers are trained to evaluate response patterns, not just responses. A long pause after a simple question may appear insignificant to the driver, but to an officer, it can signal calculation, uncertainty, or concealment, especially during investigative detention. This matters because investigative detention operates on reasonable suspicion, not probable cause. And reasonable suspicion is built from accumulation, small indicators, layered together. A realistic example: an officer asks a driver where they're coming from. The driver pauses for several seconds while avoiding eye contact, then answers vaguely. That alone may not justify escalation, but combined with other observations, trembling hands, delayed pullover, inconsistent posture, the stop begins expanding. Courts later analyze the totality of circumstances, not isolated moments. This is why timing matters. Silence is not automatically suspicious, but silence never exists alone during bodycam review. It exists beside movement, tone, posture, breathing, and officers build perception from the combination. Move 4. Tone of voice changes legal interpretation. Most people focus entirely on words. Courts often focus more on delivery. Bodycam microphones flatten human interaction. They strip away nuance. What remains is rhythm, cadence, volume, pacing. That means a driver who feels calm may still sound offensive on playback. And playback matters more than memory. Here's what most people never consider. An officer writes reports after the stop, not during it. Those reports are influenced heavily by emotional perception created during the encounter. Tone contributes to that perception. Fast speech often sounds anxious. Interrupted speech sounds resistant. Sharp responses sound confrontational, even if the actual words remain polite. Movement versus words. Again, a driver says, "Okay, officer," but says it quickly with overlapping speech while reaching for documents. The words appear compliant. The total behavior appears chaotic. Courts analyze the total behavior, not isolated phrases. One realistic case involved a driver repeatedly saying, "I understand," but each statement overlapped officer commands. During bodycam review, the court described the interaction as escalating verbal interference. The driver believed they were cooperating. The recording suggested otherwise. This is where serious stops begin forming, not from one explosive moment, but from accumulating friction. Tiny layers, one after another. Move 5. The question that quietly expands a stop. Routine stops remain narrow until something broadens them. Often, that expansion begins with conversation. Officers commonly ask questions unrelated to the original violation. Where you headed? Have you had anything to drink tonight? Is there anything illegal in the vehicle? Most drivers answer automatically. Here's the legal issue. Those answers can create new investigative pathways. From a legal perspective, officers are allowed to develop reasonable suspicion during the course of a lawful stop. That development changes the scope of authority. A routine speeding stop can evolve into impairment investigation, drug investigation, search justification, all because of conversational expansion. This is where many drivers unintentionally help build the case against themselves, not through confession, through inconsistency. A driver says they came from work. Moments later mentions being at dinner. Now the officer notices contradiction. Contradiction creates suspicion. Suspicion justifies deeper questioning. Courts repeatedly uphold expanded investigations when officers can articulate evolving suspicion based on inconsistent statements and observed behavior. That phrase matters. Articulate evolving suspicion. Because legally, officers must explain escalation step by step. And conversation helps create those steps. This is why experienced lawyers study transcripts carefully. Small conversational shifts often become the bridge between routine detention and serious investigation. If you're beginning to notice how ordinary moments quietly shape legal outcomes, that's because most traffic stop advice never reaches this level of analysis. This channel focuses on what courts actually examine, not myths, not viral slogans, real-world interpretation. So, if you value understanding how these encounters truly work, subscribe and stay with us, because the smallest details are often the ones that matter most. Move 6. Hands visibility controls officer psychology. Hands drive officer perception more than words ever will. This appears constantly in training materials and bodycam review. Visible hands communicate predictability. Hidden hands create uncertainty. And uncertainty changes everything. From a legal perspective, courts often defer heavily to officer safety concerns involving unseen hands. That means forced decisions become easier to justify once uncertainty exists. Here's the hidden problem. Many innocent movements mimic threat indicators. Reaching under a seat, adjusting clothing, digging through a bag, looking downward repeatedly, even nervous fidgeting. None of these actions are inherently criminal. But traffic stop analysis does not operate on certainty. It operates on perceived risk. A realistic scenario. An officer requests registration. The driver immediately leans across the passenger seat while explaining where the document might be. The movement itself is innocent, but the officer now loses visual confirmation of the driver's hands. Commands become sharper. Tone changes. Distance changes. The stop escalates psychologically before it escalates legally. This matters because courts later evaluate force through the reasonable officer standard established in use of force analysis. The question becomes, would a reasonable officer perceive risk at that moment? Not whether danger actually existed. That distinction is critical because once risk perception becomes reasonable, broader control measures become legally defensible. Move 7. Delay versus resistance. The line drivers misunderstand. Most drivers believe resistance means arguing or fighting. Legally, it's more complicated. Courts analyze resistance through timing and compliance patterns, not just overt defiance. A delayed response can begin resembling resistance under certain conditions, especially during investigative detention. This is where things change, because the transition is subtle. An officer gives command. The driver questions it, pauses, moves slowly without explanation, looks away repeatedly. From the driver perspective, they are being cautious. From the officer's perspective, compliance becomes uncertain. That uncertainty expands authority. One case review focused entirely on a 4-second delay. For seconds, the driver eventually complied fully. But prosecutors argue the delay created escalating uncertainty. The court analyzed bodycam timing frame by frame. Again, timing matters. This does not mean drivers must move rapidly or recklessly. Quite the opposite. Sudden movement creates separate problems. The issue is clarity. Officers and courts interpret clear, deliberate behavior more favorably than ambiguous hesitation. Ambiguity is what transforms ordinary stops into serious encounters, because ambiguity forces interpretation, and interpretation often favors officer safety concerns. Move 9, investigative detention, quietly expands through testing. Most drivers cannot identify when a stop stops being routine. That confusion creates danger. A routine stop may gradually become investigative detention expansion. Commands increase. Questions deepen. Movement restrictions tighten. Backup arrives. Positioning changes. But often, no one formally announces a shift. This is where officers rely heavily on behavioral testing, compliance timing, tone, movement predictability, responsiveness. Officer safety assessments expand gradually based on those observations. One realistic case involved a driver initially stopped for equipment violation. The stop later evolved into DUI investigation based partly on behavioral indicators observed during questioning and movement sequencing. The driver believed the stop remained routine the entire time. Legally, the investigative scope had already expanded significantly. This is why understanding officer testing matters, Because the legal framework changes quietly. And once reasonable suspicion grows into probable cause, officer authority expands rapidly. Move 10. Bodycam review turns tiny details into major evidence. Drivers remember traffic stops emotionally. Courts analyze them mechanically. This is one of the biggest disconnects in legal interpretation. Bodycam footage removes memory disputes and replaces them with replayable sequence analysis. Courts pause footage, replay commands, study timing gaps, evaluate posture, listen to tone, analyze hand visibility. Tiny details become enormous. One case review focused entirely on breathing changes visible through chest movement during questioning. Another focused on repeated downward glances during silence. Another centered on whether a driver's hands disappear below window level for 2 or 4 seconds. That level of analysis surprises most people, but this is how courts evaluate officer conduct. And this is why officers test behavior continuously during traffic stops. Because those tests later become evidence. Not formal evidence, behavioral evidence. The kind that shapes reasonable suspicion, officer perception, and use of force justification. Final conclusion. Most traffic stop evaluations happen quietly, not dramatically. Officers are constantly testing behavior without announcing it. Testing timing, testing consistency, testing emotional control, testing movement patterns, testing whether words align with actions. And here's what most people never realize. These tests are often invisible to the driver while they are happening, but they become extremely visible later during body cam review and courtroom analysis. This is why small moments matter so much. The first 10 seconds matter. Hands visibility matters. Seatbelt timing matters. Silence matters. Tone matters. Movement versus words. Again and again. Because traffic stops are not simple conversations. They're evolving legal sequences. And once officer perception shifts, the legal framework shifts with it. Routine becomes investigative. Investigative becomes serious. Serious becomes custodial, often without the driver fully recognizing when the transition occurred. That's why awareness matters. Not confrontation, not fear, awareness. Because small moments decide big outcomes. If this breakdown helped you see traffic stops differently, subscribe and stay with this channel. More real-world legal analysis is coming. Calm, practical, and focus on how courts actually interpret these encounters long after the lights stop flashing.